Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. This is the second part of our discussion about meaning, thought, and reality. In our last meeting, we have been introduced to the term referring, referent, and reference. Reference is a moment-by-moment relationship. It changes depends on the context. In this section, we will discuss some basic distinctions in reference. There are three types of reference in this discussion. First is referring expressions and non-referring expressions. We can apply this distinction in two ways. Firstly, when someone says the noun cat in a sentence like that cat looks good, for example, the noun here is a referring expression since it is being used to identify an entity. So here a referring expression identifies an entity. So nouns here are potentially referring expression. By contrast, when there are some linguistic expressions which can never be used to refer, for example, the words like such, very, if, and so on, these words, of course, contribute to the meaning the sentence they occur in, and thus help sentences denote, but they can never identify entities in the real world. So you cannot identify the entity using these non-referring expressions. The second type is constant versus variable reference. Constant reference are expressions that have the same referent across a range of utterance. For example, the word the evil tower, the Red Sea. Here the reference will not change because everybody has known the entity. So everyone has already known the Eiffel Tower. So when someone says about the Eiffel Tower, your reference will not go anywhere except to this kind of Eiffel Tower in Paris. And then the second one is variable reference. These are expressions that have their reference totally dependent on context. To identify who is being referred to by pronouns like I, like she, you, and so on, we need to know a lot about the context in which these words were uttered. For example, when I say I wrote to you, so I refers to the speaker and you refers to the hearer. She put it in my office. Who is she here? What is it there? Which is my office actually. So the reference will depend on the context. The third type of the reference is reference and extensions. We use the term referent of an expression for the thing picked out by uttering the expression in a particular context. So the referent like the capital of Pakistan here, if you see the example, the capital of Pakistan is the city of Islamabad. Here the referent of the capital of Pakistan refers to the current situation since the capital city once was in Karachi. So the referent here is based on particular context. The same thing as we say the president of Indonesia is Jokowi. It refers to today's context. When you say that several years ago, it is not the same sentence. So perhaps you can make sentence like, the president of Indonesia is SBY. The president of Indonesia is Sukarno. So it refers to the particular context occurred at that time. And then the term extension of an expression here. It is the set of things which could possibly be the referent of that expression. So as mentioned earlier in Lyon's terminology, this is what is called by denotation, the relationship between an expression and its extension. So the extension of the word city will be the set of all cities. So it refers to the same exact reference. It doesn't change because of the context, because it refers to the property of the words, as Lyon said. Okay, now in this section we'll outline some of the main ways that nominals used to refer. First of all is names. Okay, we know what names are. Names are labels for people, places, and so on, and often seem to have little other meaning. For example, here we have the name Karl Marx. It doesn't seem reasonable to ask what the meaning of Karl Marx is, other than helping us to talk about one's individual. So you cannot ask, what is the meaning by Karl Marx? Because it refers to the name of someone. But context here is important in the use of the names. So names becomes definite if they carry the speaker's assumption that the audience can identify the referent. So context is important in the use of names. For example, if you say the sentence like, he just looks like Brad Pitt here. So the speaker is assuming that you can identify that Brad Pitt is one of the American actors. So you will not refer to any other Brad Pitt here. Okay. Next, how do names work? So how do names work? There is an approach called description theory, which say that a name is taken as a label or shorthand for knowledge about the referent, or in the terminology of philosopher, for one or more definite descriptions. So this is the association the name with the right description. For example, Christopher Marlowe, here as an example, might have such description as the writer of the play Dr. Faustus, or perhaps the Elizabethan playwright murdered in a Deptford tavern. So in this theory, the understanding of a name and identifying the referent are both dependent on associating the name with the right description. This is the name and the description. Okay, so Jokowi, the president of Indonesia, so this is the description of who the names refer to. While the causal theory, names are socially inherited or borrowed. Okay, a name is given, and then it might be used by thousands or millions of people who have never met or seen the name of the person before or know very much about him. For example, we know the name of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. We have never seen him, we have never known him, but the name is used thousands or millions years ago for our prophet. So this is because of the causal theory. And then about the nouns and the noun phrases. Both of nouns and noun phrases can be used to refer to the definite or indefinite noun phrases. The noun and noun phrases can operate like names to pick out an individual. So instead of using a name, we can also use a noun or noun phrases. For example, I spoke to a woman about the noise. I spoke to the woman about the noise. You can see the difference between a woman and the woman. While a woman refers to someone who is indefinite, and the woman is someone who is definite. The speakers is already known or has been identified earlier. So the woman here is already identified before. And then definite noun phrases can form definite descriptions, where the referent is whoever or whatever fits the description. For example, she has a crush on the captain of the hockey team. Here the phrase the captain of the hockey team really describes which referent. So we can describe which captain. So usually the noun phrase with the blah 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 of the blah 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 clearly gives the description of the noun phrase. And then the referent, which is no referent or not real referent to fit the description. Sometimes there is a referent which is not real. For example, the Wizard of Oz. So the referent can be also not real here. We do not know which wizard actually. We do not know which one is the noun here. The entity, the reality of the Wizard of Oz. We do not know here, but it exists. So you can make the referent which is not real referent. Okay, noun phrases can also be used to refer to groups or individuals, either distributively, where the focus on the individuals members of the group. For example, the people in the lift avoided each other's eyes. Here, each other's eyes represent the individual members. So everybody in the lift has eyes, of course. And then you can also refer to individuals collectively when the focus is on the aggregate. The people in the lift proved to be too heavy for the lift motor. Here we count people here as a group of people. Nominals can denote substances, actions, and abstract ideas. Okay, for example, coffee is a substance, sleeping is an action, and then justice is an abstract idea. So you can use also these kinds of nouns. Some nominals are trickier in their denotational behavior. For example, the nominal no student and no student enjoyed the lecture. What does it mean? Here, no student does not denote an individual who enjoyed the lecture. So the meaning of that sentence can be paraphrased into, of the students, not one enjoyed the lecture. So no student means not one student. There is no student. Okay. Next is about quantifiers. This complex denotational behavior is the characteristic of quantifiers. This is a class of words that in English includes each, all, none, some, and no. This allows speaker to predicate something of a whole class of entities. So we may use this kind of quantifiers to identify the noun or noun phrase here. For example, every Frenchman some Frenchmen, a few Frenchmen. So you will know how much or how many Frenchmen here. Okay, now we go on to the reference as a theory of a meaning. The simplest theory of meaning is to claim that semantics is reference, that is to give the meaning of a word that shows what it denotes. Okay, that is to give the meaning what show it denotes. It means that this theory would claim that reference picks out elements in the real world. So here, if we talk about proper nouns, it denotes the individuals. Common names denote the sets of individuals. Verbs denote actions. Adjectives denote properties of individuals, and then adverbs denote properties of action. So we will know that the reference will represent something. But there are some problems with the theory. So it claims that many words have no meaning. It means that there is not always there is something that not always one-to-one relationship. So for example, if we use the word like so, and then very, and then but, here it is very difficult to find what is the real word referent for these words. And then second problem is that many nominal expressions used by speakers do not have a referent that exists or has never existed. Okay, the same as the previous example, that we may make a referent which is not real. So sometimes we have a nominal which do not have a referent that exists. For example, the word like unicorn. They are meaningless if they are related to the items in the real world. So actually, unicorn is not real, but we can use it in the sentence. So if a speaker using this expression is not referring to anything in reality, and such a reference is meaning, so how do sentence using the words have meaning? Okay, so actually there is not always a one-to-one correspondence between a linguistic expression and the item to be identified. For example, we have two sentences here. Then in 1981, Anwar el-Sadat was assassinated. Then in 1981, the president of Egypt was assassinated. Here we can refer to the same individual in different ways. Anwar el-Sadat and the president of Egypt are the same referent, but one using name and the other one using definite description. Okay, remember description. So in description, we do not use name, but the description of who the individual is. Okay, from the previous examples, the two expressions would share the same referent, but we probably want to say that they have different meaning. When you say the president of Egypt, of course it gives different meaning. And when we say the name, of course it will also give different meaning. So one might object that names do not really have any meaning. You might refer to the woman who lives next door to you by various descriptions, like my neighbor, Pat's mother, Michael's wife, the head of science at St. Helens School, or some other things. It's clear that this description will refer to the same individual. So for example, you have a neighbor. Your neighbor's name is Susie. Susie is your neighbor. Susie is Pat's mother. Susie is Michael's wife. Susie is the head of science at St. Helens School. So actually it refers to the same individual. But when you mention it in description, they will differ in meaning. What does it mean? My neighbor. So it is not the same meaning as the head of science, of course, because you refer to someone who lives next to your door. What is the meaning of Pat's mother? Of course, it will give different meaning from the neighbor. Pat's mother is someone who delivers Pat. Michael's wife. This is not the same as Michael's mother. Michael's wife is the one who marries with Michael. Okay, so different expression give different meaning, although they refer to the same person. So there is more to meaning than reference here. So to follow this argument, we need to understand that the meaning of an expression will arise from both sense and reference. So it doesn't enough to say that the meaning is arti in Indonesian term. So we need to make the categorize taken from our sense and reference. It is not enough to say that A means B, because it will refer to a lot of things. Okay, this is the discussion for today. You will try to understand first before you try to ask something if you don't understand the discussions. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.